They'll never admit it. They'll never say the words out loud. They'll never tell you how much your silence stings. But here's the truth. An avoidant doesn't break when you love them. They break when you leave. Your absence is the one thing they can't outrun. It's the one thing they can't dismiss. It's the one thing that pierces straight through their defenses. They'll act like they don't care, like they're fine without you, like your withdrawal means nothing. But deep inside, it shakes them more than your love ever did. This is why the unspoken impact of withdrawal. They don't flinch when you leave. They don't beg you to stay. They don't break down in tears. At least, not where you can see them. On the surface, the avoidant looks composed, collected, untouched. They give off the impression that your absence is irrelevant, that they don't need you, that they're better off on their own. But here's the truth. Your absence hits them harder than you think. It shakes the foundation they've built their entire identity on, and it activates the wound they've spent a lifetime burying. Avoidants are masters of disguise. They've trained themselves to appear unaffected. From childhood, they learned that showing need was dangerous, that leaning on others meant disappointment, that vulnerability would only invite rejection. So they built an armor, a mask of indifference, a posture of independence. But inside, they crave connection just as much as anyone else. They long to be chosen, to be cared for, to be loved in a way that feels safe. The problem is, love never felt safe to them. It felt overwhelming. It felt like pressure. It felt like the threat of being swallowed whole. So when you gave them space, when you stopped chasing, when you finally pulled away, part of them exhaled in relief. Yes, their nervous system whispered, "This is safer. This is manageable. This is what I can control." But another part of them, the part they never show you, felt the crushing weight of silence. Because withdrawal doesn't just create distance. It awakens their deepest fear, that they were never enough to be held on to. Think about it like this. Every avoidant carries two voices inside them. One says, "Keep them away. Closeness is dangerous. Space is safety." The other says, "Please don't leave me. Please choose me. Please stay." When you withdraw, both voices come alive. One voice pretends it's relieved. The other voice quietly breaks. And here's the paradox. The avoidant will always show you the first voice, the calm one, the distant one, the one that says, "I don't care." But the second voice, the one that hurts, that one is hidden, buried under years of survival. Your absence doesn't go unnoticed. It cuts through their defenses in a way closeness never could. Because closeness they can push away. They can dismiss it. They can criticize it. They can reframe it as too much. But absence, they can't push that away. They can't fight with silence. They can't argue with emptiness. Absence leaves them alone with themselves. And for the avoidant, being alone with themselves is terrifying. Why? Because the quiet stirs up everything they've tried to numb. The memories of being left behind, the feelings of being unworthy, the terror of being unseen. Absence says what words never could. It says, "No one is coming for you. It's happening again. You're alone." This is why your withdrawal lands so deeply. It isn't just about you. It's about every abandonment they've ever lived through. Every disappointment they've never spoken of. Every time they told themselves, "I'll never need anyone again." So when you leave, it's not just one person walking away. It's their entire history collapsing into the present. And because they can't bear to face that pain directly, they put the mask back on. The calm smile, the indifferent tone, the "I'm fine." But you can always tell, not by what they say, but by what they avoid saying. Not by their expression, but by their sudden coldness. Not by their presence, but by the walls they put up higher than ever before. The cruel irony is this: your absence is often the moment they feel the most for you, but it's also the moment they're least likely to admit it. They miss you, but they won't reach out. They ache, but they'll distract themselves. They care, but they'll convince themselves they don't. It's not that they don't feel. It's that feeling terrifies them, because feeling means vulnerability, and vulnerability, to them, means danger. So what happens instead? They bury it. They silence it. They act stronger than they feel. But at night, when the distractions fade, when the phone is silent, when there's nothing left to scroll, nothing left to do, that's when your absence speaks the loudest. It's in those hours they replay moments. The sound of your laugh, the warmth of your presence, the way you once stayed, even when they pushed you away. They may never tell you this, but your absence is not neutral. It's an earthquake under their calm surface. And yet, here is the paradox that defines avoidance. The more they miss you, the harder they'll work to hide it. Because in their mind, showing that pain risks rejection. It risks confirming the very fear they're trying to escape. So they armor up. They lean harder into distance. They pretend your absence is exactly what they wanted. But don't be fooled. That mask isn't indifference. It's protection. Your absence is the wound they never show, the grief they never name, the longing they never admit. It's not that it doesn't hurt. It's that it hurts too much to face. Mask of indifference. They've trained for this moment. They've spent years building it. A shield, a mask, a performance. When you withdraw, the mask goes on instantly. It says, "I'm fine. I didn't need you anyway. I'm better off alone." To the outside world, it looks convincing. Even you might believe it. After all, avoidants rarely show cracks. But what you're seeing isn't truth. It's survival. Avoidance learned early in life that emotions weren't safe. That showing need meant rejection. That reaching out ended in disappointment. So they turned vulnerability into a liability, and independence into their armor. When you step back, they reach for that armor like a reflex. Not because they don't care, but because caring feels unbearable. Here's the paradox. Your absence hurts them more deeply than they'll ever admit. But their response makes it look like the opposite. Instead of running toward you, they retreat further into themselves. Instead of showing sadness, they show silence. Instead of saying, "I miss you," they say nothing at all. It's not indifference. It's defense. Think about it this way. When a child reaches for a parent and is met with coldness, they learn a painful lesson. Don't reach. Don't need. Don't ask. That child grows up, becomes an adult, but the wound never heals. So when someone finally gets close and then pulls away, it reopens the oldest wound of all. The avoidant feels it deeply, but instead of showing it, they bury it. They hide it. They disguise it. And to everyone watching, it looks like nothing at all. This is why so many people misunderstand avoidance. They assume withdrawal doesn't touch them, that absence bounces off their armor, that they truly don't care. But the truth is darker. They care so much that they can't risk showing it. Because to them, showing it feels like weakness. They'd rather ache in silence than reveal a need that might not be met. When you withdraw, they go into survival mode. They distract themselves. They pour into work. They scroll endlessly. They numb out. Anything to avoid the silence. Anything to avoid the stillness where your absence echoes. But distraction isn't healing. It's just delay. It pushes the pain further down. And the more they push it down, the heavier it becomes. This is why the mask of indifference is so convincing. Because they've been practicing it since childhood. It's second nature. It's automatic. It's their shield against the world. But behind that shield, They are human, fragile, longing, hurting. They miss you in ways they'll never confess. They feel your absence like a shadow that won't go away. They might laugh louder, work harder, post more, but every performance is hiding the same thing: the pain of not being able to say, "I wish you were here." Your absence doesn't confirm their strength. It exposes their fragility. But they'll never show you, because to them, exposure feels like annihilation. So they double down. Tougher exterior, colder tone, sharper edges. It's not because they don't care. It's because they care too much. And caring terrifies them. This is the cruel irony of the avoidant mask. The very moment they feel the most is the moment they'll show the least. You'll think they've moved on. You'll think they don't notice. You'll think they're free of you. But inside, your absence is everywhere. In the spaces of their day, in the quiet of their nights, in the memories that resurface when they least expect it. They don't erase you. They carry you. Silently, painfully, permanently. That's why their mask is so tragic. It doesn't just hide their feelings from you. It hides their feelings from themselves. And over time, that mask becomes a prison, a cage they can't step out of. Your absence rattles the bars of that cage. It reminds them of the cost of hiding. It whispers truths they can't face, that they wanted you closer, that they needed you more than they admitted, that they lost something they can't replace. And yet, instead of naming it, they cover it. Instead of reaching out, they withdraw further. Instead of saying, "I miss you," they convince themselves they don't. That's the mask of indifference, a mask that looks unshakable on the outside. But on the inside, it cracks the moment you're gone. The echo of abandonment. When you step back, when your voice fades, when your presence disappears, the avoidant doesn't just lose you in the present. They relive everyone they've ever lost in the past. Your silence becomes an echo, and that echo travels back through time. It hits the moments they were left crying alone. It hits the days no one came when they needed comfort. It hits the years they convinced themselves, "I'll never depend on anyone again." That's why your absence is so heavy. It doesn't just belong to today. It belongs to yesterday, and the day before, and the years before that. Every abandonment they've endured gets folded into this moment. So when you withdraw, they don't just feel the loss of you. They feel the weight of a lifetime. The avoidant nervous system is built on this loop. The moment closeness appears, alarms go off. Too much, too close, too dangerous. So they push back. They create distance. They retreat. But then, when distance finally comes, when they get what they thought they wanted, a different alarm sounds. Too empty, too quiet, too alone. And that's the cycle that torments them. The cycle your absence awakens in full force. At first, they'll distract themselves, work harder, stay busy, scroll longer, fill the silence with noise. But silence has a way of creeping back. It waits. It lingers. It always returns. And in that silence, the echo grows louder. Here's what the echo says: "You're unlovable. You're forgettable. You're not worth staying for." The voice isn't really about you. It's the voice of every wound before you, every rejection, every moment of neglect, every dismissal they buried deep inside. Your absence awakens that voice. And once it's awake, it won't go quiet again easily. That's why they can look so cold. Because feeling all of that at once is unbearable. So they put up walls. They harden their tone. They shut you out. But inside, they're not cold. They're burning. They're battling an old story. A story that says they were never enough to be chosen. And your silence feels like proof. This is what makes absence more powerful than presence. When you're there, they can fight you, dismiss you, push you back. But when you're gone, they're left with themselves. And that's the scariest place of all, because themselves is where all the wounds live. The grief, the fear, the loneliness. No one to distract, no one to fight, no one to blame, just them. And the echo. It's important to understand this. Your absence doesn't just hurt because they miss you. It hurts because it mirrors the oldest pain they know. And that pain is primal. It's not rational. It's not logical. It's not something they can think their way out of. It lives in their body, in their nervous system, in the wiring of how they learn to survive. That's why the echo feels like life or death. Because to the child inside them, abandonment was life or death. This is why they can seem so contradictory. Why they'll act like you mean nothing, while secretly being haunted by your absence. Because both things are true. On the surface, they're telling themselves they don't need you. But underneath, they're reliving the terror of being left behind. That's the duality of the avoidant heart. Indifference on the outside, devastation on the inside. But here's the tragedy. They will almost never tell you this. They won't call. They won't text. They won't admit, "Your absence hurts me." Instead, they'll go silent. They'll withdraw deeper. They'll let the mask take over. Because to them, admitting need feels like begging, and begging feels like humiliation. So they stay quiet, even as the echo grows louder, even as it consumes them. You may think they're fine. You may think they've moved on. You may think your absence didn't matter. But the truth? It mattered more than you'll ever see. Because in silence, they face the wound they've been running from their entire life. And nothing hits harder than that. The mask they wear in your absence. On the outside, the avoidant looks fine. They may look even better than fine. Productive, confident, unbothered. They'll post the picture. They'll smile at the gathering. They'll bury themselves in work. They'll laugh a little louder than usual, almost as if your absence doesn't touch them at all. But don't be fooled. This mask isn't freedom. It's armor. It's how they survive the storm your absence stirs up. Because showing pain feels dangerous, and needing you feels unbearable. So they wear the mask, the strong one, the independent one, the "I don't care" one. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they feel too much. And when the emotions flood, their instinct is to hide, to push it down, to make sure nobody sees. Because what's worse than pain? Pain that someone else witnesses. Pain that could be judged. Pain that could be rejected again. So they go invisible in their suffering. Even while smiling on the surface, the mask is convincing. You might even believe it. You might scroll past their updates and think, "They're doing fine without me." But behind the screen, in the silence of their room, the story is different. The mask comes off, and the echo takes over again. They'll lie awake, staring at the ceiling, telling themselves they're strong. But strength feels hollow at 2 a.m. Strength doesn't stop the ache in their chest. Strength doesn't fill the emptiness where your presence used to be. That's the paradox. They look the strongest when they're actually the most fragile. Because the mask is only needed when the wound is bleeding. And here's the cruel twist. The mask doesn't just fool you. It fools them too. They convince themselves they're fine, that they've moved on, that your absence means nothing. But if that were true, why the late night scrolling? Why the sudden pang when your name shows up? Why the anger at reminders they pretend not to care about? The mask hides, but it doesn't heal. Your absence forces them into contradiction. On one side, the mask. On the other, the echo. One says, "I don't need you." The other whispers, "Why did you leave?" And both feel true. That's why the avoidant seems impossible to read. Because they are living two realities at once. The tragedy is that most people only ever see the mask. They see the surface. the calm face, the steady routine, and they assume the absence didn't matter, that the avoidant has no heart, that nothing ever got through. But if you could peel back the layers, if you could sit in their silence, you'd hear the story they'll never speak. You'd hear the sound of someone holding back tears they refuse to cry. You'd hear the tightness in their chest when they long for comfort but don't dare ask. You'd hear the loneliness humming underneath the performance of strength. Here's the cruel irony. They wear the mask to protect themselves, but the mask is what keeps them isolated. The mask says, "I don't need anyone." But the heart beneath whispers, "Please stay." And because the mask is louder, most people leave. Most people believe the performance. Most people never see the truth. So the very armor they wear becomes the reason they end up alone. Your absence deepens this cycle, because with you gone, the mask has to work overtime. Every quiet moment is a battle. Every reminder of you is a test. Every feeling that breaks through is a threat they must suppress. The mask doesn't just hide, it exhausts. And eventually, that exhaustion leaks out. They'll snap at someone who didn't deserve it. They'll withdraw from people who care. They'll sink into a numbness they can't explain. Because carrying a mask that heavy always comes with a cost. That's why your absence feels so devastating. Not only because it awakens the old wounds, but because it forces them to live behind the mask even more. And the longer they wear it, the harder it is to remember who they really are underneath. The mask may convince the world. It may even convince you, but it can never erase the truth. They feel your absence. They ache in your absence. They crumble in your absence. They just don't let you see it. And here's the hidden heartbreak. The more they hide, the more misunderstood they feel. They long to be seen, but they fear being exposed. They want to be chosen, but they refuse to admit they care. So the mask stays on, and the wound stays hidden, even as it bleeds louder in your absence. The cost they never admit out loud. Your absence doesn't just sting, it reshapes them. Because every time someone leaves, the avoidant learns something dangerous. That maybe they really are unlovable. That maybe closeness always ends in pain. That maybe distance is the only safe option left. They won't admit this out loud. Not to you, not to themselves. Instead, they bury the lesson deep. Behind the mask, behind the independence, behind the story of, "I'm better off alone." But make no mistake, your absence leaves an imprint. It carves itself into the way they see love, and it whispers to them in moments of stillness. You were right to keep your guard up. The cost isn't just loneliness. It's the slow erosion of hope. Hope that love can last. Hope that closeness can be safe. Hope that someone will stay. And with every absence, that hope fades just a little more, until love becomes something they no longer chase, but something they quietly mourn. This is why they run. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel so much. And they're terrified of what it could cost them. Love feels like a gamble they can't afford, because every time they've let someone close, the loss has been unbearable. So they choose control over connection, distance over vulnerability, loneliness over love. But here's the cruel irony. That choice costs them even more, because loneliness doesn't protect. It corrodes. It doesn't silence the longing. It amplifies it. It doesn't make the wound disappear. It just makes the wound permanent. So while they may seem strong, what they're really doing is carrying a private grief no one else can see. A grief that grows heavier with every absence, especially yours. And here's the truth they'll never say. They do miss you. They do ache in your absence. They do wish things could be different. But the only language they know for pain is withdrawal. The only tool they trust is distance. So they stay silent. They stay guarded. They stay behind the mask, even when what they want most is for someone to see past it. Your absence doesn't just remind them of what they've lost. It reminds them of everything they've never healed. And while they may never cry in front of you, while they may never confess it out loud, their body remembers. Their heart remembers. Their nervous system remembers. Every goodbye hits them harder than they let on. Every silence echoes louder than they admit. Every loss confirms the story they've carried for years. That love was never truly safe. But here's the paradox. Even with all that pain, even with all that fear, they still long for it. They still crave closeness. They still ache for connection. They still hope, deep down, that someone might stay long enough to break the cycle. Your absence hurts them because your presence mattered more than they'll ever say. And maybe that's the part you needed to hear most. That behind the silence, behind the mask, behind the walls they built, you mattered more than they'll show, more than they'll admit, more than they'll ever put into words. So if you've ever wondered, did they even care? The answer is yes. They cared so much. They had to hide it because caring meant risk, and risk meant pain, and pain was something they swore they'd never let anyone see again. This is the tragedy of the avoidant. They push away what they need most. They hide the wound that aches the loudest. They wear the mask so well, the world believes they're fine. But in the quiet of your absence, the truth is undeniable. They are not untouched. They are not indifferent. They are not immune. Your absence hit them. It changed them. It cost them more than they'll ever tell you. And if you felt that same ache too, if you've been on either side of this pattern, you already know how heavy it is. You know what it feels like to long for closeness, while being terrified of it, to want to reach out, but to stop yourself, to miss someone so deeply, and yet stay silent. That's the weight of avoidant love, and it's heavier than most realize. But here's where the story can shift. The cycle doesn't have to last forever. Healing is possible. Connection is possible. Change is possible. And it begins with awareness, with understanding the masks, with seeing the wounds for what they are, with naming the patterns out loud. Because the more we see the truth, the less power the silence holds. So as you sit with this, let it be more than just knowledge. Let it be an invitation to look at your own patterns, to ask where the avoidant lives in you, to reflect on the ways absence has shaped you, too. Because healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we share the story, when we step out from behind the mask, when we allow someone else to see us, fully and without hiding. And if this resonated with you, if you felt the truth of it in your bones, you're not alone. So many people are caught in this cycle. So many are living behind the mask. So many are aching in silence. That's why spaces like this matter. That's why conversations like this matter. Because they remind us of what's real, even when it's hidden. So keep learning, keep reflecting, keep breaking the silence. And if this spoke to you today, stay with this community. There's more here for you. More understanding, more insight, more reminders that you're not alone in this journey. Because the truth is, you were never as invisible as you feared, and neither were they.